Welcome to DASAR. My name is Darshan Doshi. At DASAR, we aim to build a community of people who are building and creating things. If you have an aspiration to build a business or to get fit or to start investing in things like Bitcoin, take the first step by joining DASAR community. On DASAR podcast, we invite a lot of people who've gone on to achieve their goals. People who could be entrepreneurs, investors, fitness gurus, and the like. Today, we have a fantastic guest with us, Shridhar Shukla. Shridhar is an entrepreneur and also a technologist at heart. Welcome, Shridhar.
Thank you for calling me.
Thank you, Shridhar. So, let me give a quick overview of who Shridhar is. Shridhar was the COO of Persistent. Subsequently, he established and started Great Software Lab. It's gone on to become one of the most reputed product services company in the country. And more recently, he's founded and grown kPoint, which is in the video analytics space. The one theme that is consistent in all of this is tech products for large enterprises. And that is what I want to break down today and learn from Shridhar. How do you approach product development, product distribution, innovation, building organizations, and scaling them up? So, Shridhar, I gave a quick overview of who you are from professional front. But when someone comes up to you and asks, who is Shridhar Shukla? What do you typically say?
Well, assuming that we are still in the professional context, I would say I'm a software entrepreneur.
Okay.
If my daughter's friend comes, I would say I'm Rohini's father.
Great. So you're in the video analytics space for the last good part of last decade with kPoint. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know what kPoint is and does, can you share an overview of the current status, what it does, funding, if any, and the path forward?
Sure. So first of all, Darshan, thank you so much for calling me. It's always fun to talk to you, and getting recorded while talking is even more fun. We do this all the time because we are in the video business. At kPoint, what we do is we are helping companies use video for their work. You would see video in two big buckets today. One is the OTT platforms and social media, and the other is video conferencing and at work. So we are on the at work side. So our goal is to help companies use video for everything at work. And when you think of a company, there are so many things a company does. It makes the product, it hires people, it promotes and markets the product, it educates and supports the customers, it supports the community. All of these things are moving more and more towards video today. And kPoint gives them a platform to do all of that.
Excellent. Since technology became more widely adopted and social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, all of them have really seen or moved from the world which was text heavy to video first, right? Today's generation especially truly believes in show, don't tell, right? Yeah. So what have you seen in your experience with kPoint where large enterprises, however they adopted to video first approach? Have they adopted to video first approach? And what will it take over the next decade as this becomes more widely accepted?
Yeah. So they're getting there, Darshan. They are learning to adopt video. And the younger generation is kind of pushing them faster and faster towards adopting video. People's habits are changing. Look at what we are doing. We are creating a video. Let me include podcasts also in the bucket of streaming media. And so people like to listen to podcasts, listen to books, watch video. They want documents to be read out to them. They want to give instructions over audio to their assistants. So everything is becoming audio visual. And we've seen for the last 20, 25 years, things have happened outside the enterprise first, and then they have come into the enterprise. What the industry analysts have called as consumerization of IT in the industry. So that's what's going on. And while video has become much more popular in the social media and in the consumer world, it's making a fast appearance everywhere inside the organization. And kPoint began 10 years ago. In fact, on the 1st of April, we completed 10 years. So, believe it or not, the objective with which we began has become a pressing need because of the pandemic. We didn't know the pandemic would be there. We began basically to solve our own problem. And our problem was that, we used to be in web meetings with people who were 10 hours away in time zones. So somebody or the other would always be getting up or going to sleep, and someone in between would be dropping kids to school. It's hard to get everyone's attention. But everyone needs to know what went on in the web meeting. So how would they get it? So we said, we will create searchable recordings out of web meetings 10 years ago. We were a little ahead of the time. Now, since the pandemic has set in, everybody's work is a web meeting, and they have to get to what was discussed. How would they do it? People are still not really using recordings because they're very hard to use, unless you use kPoint. Okay, so that's what's going on, and companies are adopting video. They're being pushed to it. Work from home is really accelerating it, and I think we are in the right time, right place now.
Awesome. I have so many questions, but the first question I have is, now there's so much data being created, generated. You have Zoom. Just in the last 1 year, we are calling what is Zoom fatigue or video conference fatigue, right? Wasn't the case a year ago. There was not enough adoption. The second thing we are seeing is bite-size videos, right? So 15 seconds Insta Reels, 30-second Reels. Now, we all knew these elevator pitches, so to say. They've been existent since the ad industry in 1960s. My question to you really is, how do you capture attention when there is so much available for you to do? You're spoiled for choice. There are so many options. Let's take the example that you mentioned. You get on a call, Zoom call, a Google Meet. But out of the 30 minutes, typically only 2 or 3 minutes worth are something which is actionable, insights, right? Assuming that's the generic data out there. So how do you go about, how do you go about solving that problem?
A great point, Darshan. Video is everywhere, and as a result, the nature of video is different in different places. On Netflix, you will watch glued to your big screen for a long time. On your mobile, you would not keep something in front of you if it doesn't grab you in first 5 seconds. What about at work? You have to think about that. And at work, really, the first thing to think about is, when you sit down to work, you're very, very conscious of your productivity, getting the job done, going out and getting things that you want, that will help your work. And if it's going to help my work, I will watch a 2-hour talk by an expert. Or if I know something, but I kind of don't recall a certain part of it, I would like to just go to that portion and watch it, right? So video at work is very different from video outside of work. First thing to realize. So it's not video that's important, it's the content in the video that's important, which is relevant to my work. You of course need the hygiene level things, like the audio has to be good. That is one thing that has to be good. The content has to be relevant. and stuff on the screen has to be relevant to what the audio is doing. If you give me that, then I'm just going to get what I need for my work and move on. I'm not going to look at whether it's well produced, its voice modulation is right or not. I'm not here to entertain myself. I'm getting my job done. So that is something to recognize.
Shridhar, you've been a tech services entrepreneur and then you've moved to tech products, right, at kPoint. Now, these are very different mindsets required. I've encountered a few startup founders who successfully built services businesses but have failed to transition to a product company. And I know you have some interesting stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can share your experience of being a tech services entrepreneur and the difference in building a product company.
Yes. So they are like oil and water. They don't mix. But you find people trying to create a mix all the time. Now, if you look at it from the customer's point of view, product and service are two sides of one coin. So you do see product companies adding a service component to their product for increasing the margin. Or they deliberately keep their platform very heavy on service so that there is a hook that they grab the customer with. On the other hand, you find a lot of services companies trying to become efficient by productizing some IP or by productizing their processes or coming up with methodologies and so on, which they consider their IP. So the debate is really not product versus service. The debate should be, what is the investment model? Okay. What any company does is it invests in the hope of getting a reward, and in the process it takes some risk. So like even a personal portfolio, if you look at a company as a portfolio of investment with a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of reward, then I like to characterize a company based on the services model as relatively low investment, relatively low risk, and relatively low reward. Now, as against that, a product company would be relatively high investment, relatively high risk, and a relatively high reward. I'm using the word relatively deliberately because you can always come up with a counter example for anything I say. So it's an issue of what's your perspective, and so this relatively word is very important. But the basic point here is, when you start a services company, you get paid at the end of the month or at the end of your project. Pretty much guaranteed if you don't screw up in some way. Okay? So, the risk is relatively limited. It is only to your time schedule and quality of the delivery. You are going to get paid. Now, if you want to scale that as a business, you have to scale doing lots of them at one time. So, very soon you will find that large services companies, even if they have a strong technology angle to them, even if they have a strong domain angle to them, there is a very heavy logistics in scaling the company. So as against this, if you look at a product company, you have to spend a whole lot before anybody would buy your product, because it takes time to get to a stage where the customer says, yeah, this is complete enough for me to pay you. Then you've got to get the pricing right. You have lots of competition, because if you have hit upon a right area, then there are other bright people like you. They also hit upon that area, and very quickly the big guys get in and your risk goes up. But if you do a certain number of factors well, and if you achieve a certain market share and develop a differentiation and a position in the market, your reward can potentially be unlimited. It can be billions of dollars, but very few companies get there. There are more startup product stories that are failures than successes. Of course, we talk a lot more about successes, so not many people talk about failures. But that's the reality of life. Whereas you rarely find services companies really failing miserably because the risk is low, the reward is relatively low, but it's pretty much guaranteed. Investment is low. So this is really the difference. It's the difference in the investment model. And when people who are entrepreneurs trying to mix the two, if they don't recognize this, then there are painful periods and wrong decisions, missed opportunities, etc.
So just on that, let me just elaborate and get some more maybe specificity to it. What were some of the early challenges when you started kPoint where you thought, okay, I just need to stop doing this because if I want kPoint to succeed, I need to do this? Were there any instances like that?
Of course, you bet. I mean, kPoint was incubated by GS Lab, where we said, look, there seems to be a market for building a video platform. Let's build one and make web meetings searchable. So we built it, got the initial 2 or 3 customers, and then we realized that GS Lab, which was a product development services company, whose profits were funding kPoint, needed its profits for its own growth. And kPoint, as it was becoming successful, needed more money. So, they can't live in the same house. So we decided to spin kPoint out and get investment for it. And so that was the reason why, even though they started in one organization, we realized that you can't continue like that. And so we spun out. And we got this wisdom because we had very deep management talent in the company. I had lots of years of experience. My founder colleague Sunil is also a software entrepreneur, 3rd or 4th time now. My colleague Atul Narkhede was also similar, younger to us, but depth in experience. And we could see that we could make this mistake, and we did not make that mistake. So a lot of the times, that's where things fall
out. You build a tech product, a SaaS product in India, B2B product in India, and you want to sell it to the West, right? So how do you go about building that sales engine sitting from India? Or what has been your experience doing this?
Well, that I would say has been the biggest learning for us. If you look at SaaS products, they are actually, quick fulfillment on a certain workflow, on a certain value. And so they are far closer to the end customer than the old world B2B products where there would be serious customization or professional services before the end customer gets their hand on it. So therefore, in the SaaS world, the cultural angle is very strong. Okay, even though the globe is becoming more and more alike, I think there are still differences between India, between China, Europe, America, South America, Southeast Asia. So we thought initially that we would build our SaaS product sitting here in India, make it rugged, and then go sell it in the West. Guess what? It doesn't happen. It didn't happen. You got to be local to really make big ticket sales because that's the way people buy. They will buy from friends, experts, or market leaders. If you're not from there, you don't have friends there. That's how it begins. And then you become experts and eventually, hopefully, market leaders. So building in one geo and selling in another geo is not that simple. Don't count on it. If you are in a geo, build for it and become big in that geo. That's our learning.
Sridhar, over the last few decades, you've built innovative products and innovative companies at Persistent, at GS Lab, and at kPoint. I just want to decode that a little bit. Can you share your insights on your approach towards building innovative products and innovative companies?
Sure, Darshan, I will try. But I also reflect on this all the time, and I do keep going back to my very first job, which was before Persistent. I was a tenure track faculty member at the Naval Postgraduate School. And that's where I got the grounding of creating a group out of nothing and getting some action going, which had a revenue angle to it. So you might wonder, what's a revenue angle in an academic setting? So there we had a very simple choice. Either teach for 12 months, which can be very, very tiring and boring, or teach for 6 months and do research for 6 months, but get your own research funding for those 6 months, or else go without salary. It was such a straight choice. It offered you freedom to do what you wanted for 6 months, and it could come in quarters also, so you could alternate. But you had to get your own funding. You had to get your own students. You had to generate your proposals, pay the institute the tax required. We didn't have to pay students because they were all commissioned officers from the US Navy and allied militaries of the US. But the modus operandi was the same, that you come up with a proposal, you get it funded, you deliver on it. In the process, get students on board and make sure their degree is complete, and you are able to get continued funding. And in the process, you get paid yourself for 6 months. So that really helped. The way in which it helped was we had to do something new because funding agencies wanted something new. And that's so true in cutting edge technology business because customers want something new. And the students are there to build their careers like employees are there. I never thought that I'm paying the guys and therefore they ought to do something for me. I always thought this person must develop a good thesis. And so that really made a big impact on me, the way I dealt with people later on. And of course, there was the edge of, getting not paid for 6 months if this didn't work. So that helped at Persistent. I really didn't have any challenge in going from that model to the model at Persistent, where we used to sell to software OEMs, our ability to help them build their products. And, in the process, get young blood to learn the technologies and deliver. And then tell the customer that, look, now we can do something more and here are our ideas. So it really mapped very well. And then at GS Lab, the same thing. So fundamental to all of this building up the organizations was, how you dealt with people. And I think that, fortunately, due to my grounding of being a prof, was in a very non-threatening environment. All incentives were aligned. And I could maintain that in my subsequent groups. This is one aspect of it. What was different was, at the postgraduate school, I didn't have a management team to deal with or to work together with. And I had that in all of the companies. And what really worked for me, I must say I was very fortunate in being able to work with good people all along, in all companies. And by good, I mean people with very high integrity, very high ethics, very high passion for technology, very respectful of people around them, and very, very down to earth. And yet, with very different points of view. So there was a very healthy creative friction all the time, which prevented mistakes from taking place. And I think that's a key to building strong orgs, that you have people with differing points of view. And so, things get weeded out right at the beginning. And when you go out with, everybody committed, even though some people are doing something that they didn't want. That was very important.
Shridhar, I now want to learn a little bit about who you are. What were some of the experiences that made who you are today? You've achieved some decent amount of success professionally, personally. You were a professor, you've turned into an entrepreneur, and all in all, life is good. But at the same time, I'm sure you've had some amount of failures. So, my first question on this is: has there been one failure which has made you question your view on life or has changed you in any way?
So, on the personal side, this is a mistake that a lot of people make. I was also one of them, which was as a young person in grad school, uh, I lived way beyond my means. Okay. So, I had a great time. I would repeat the mistake because if I don't make that mistake, I may not enjoy the kind of experiences that I had then. But at the end of the day, living beyond one's means is a mistake. And it got corrected later on, but it did change me. Uh, I just became very careful with money after that. I made sure that living beyond one's means just didn't remain sexy, glamorous to me anymore. It just went away. So that corrected it because I did go through that experience early on. So
You've achieved quite a bit of success in your life. Um, if you wanted, you could retire today, right? But why do you kind of get up in the morning, work on the hard part of building kPoint, and what is the motivation factor today for you to keep going today?
well, I'll take it slightly at a higher level. I think I've been an extremely lucky person. I would have used another word, but I don't want to use it on this podcast. Uh, for one simple reason is that right from the time I entered grad school to date, I have fortunately been able to look forward to the day. Okay? Uh, Whenever it got taxing, I made a change. And thankfully, the wind about something getting taxing came to me well before. So it never got to that point. So there was a little bit of knowing myself well, uh, anticipation, and also being plain lucky. The luck part was things worked out. The other luck part was the people around me. And that may have something to do with who I associate with, but I think uh, I definitely don't want to take the credit for the amazing people that I got to work with, and they really didn't create stress for me in life. So it's also become my primary advice to people that only do those things where you feel like getting up in the morning and doing it. Otherwise, stop it. Do something else. There is no other metric to it. How successful you are is not important. That day matters, and the next day matters. So that's the principle. And therefore, even at kPoint, if I feel like getting up and going to work, it's because of the people who are going to meet me at work and who I'm going to interact with.
This has been an awesome podcast, Shridhar. I have learned a lot more. I continue to learn from you. I hope all of you have found this useful as well. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, Shridhar.
Oh, I couldn't have enjoyed anything more. Thank you so much for talking about these topics.
Thank you. I hope you found this really insightful. At DASAR, we want to bring actionable insights to you from people who have that years and years of experience. And there's a lot that we can learn from them or their expertise, right? Or their viewpoints. Essentially, what we want are multiple perspectives from people so we can elevate ourselves. But all these insights will probably not be useful unless you put it to action. So think about what are the one or two things that you're going to put to action over the next week to 10 days. If you like to read, there's a lot of writings that you'll find on www.dasar.in. And of course, you'll find all the podcasts on YouTube and the various podcast channels as well. Thanks a lot for joining. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.